It's 7:31. I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Darien Board of Finance to order. It's Tuesday, August 16th, and again, it's 7:31 p.m. First item on the agenda is public comment, and it doesn't seem like we have anyone in the room that wants to make public comment. Jen, have we gotten any emails in about people that want to speak?
We have not.
Okay, so we'll close that item on the agenda. The first four items on our agenda all relate to transfers. One related to sort of parks, another related to salaries, police, and a few other sort of professional services. What I would say is we should probably, since we have Chief Anderson here and Ms. Geary here, let's let the two of them go first. We can run through those. So why don't we, Pam, number 2, discuss and take action on request to transfer $5,500 to Parks overtime?
Yep. How you doing?
Hey, Don, could you like push that thing back just a little bit? I think because the camera. Thanks, Chief.
Ready?
Yep.
So the request is for $5,500 because of the storms from last summer. We had some unpredictable vandalism at Weed Beach and Tilly Pond. We had some additional hours from the fireworks. We had some additional hours for having to take care of the plantings at Highland that was not necessarily, that we didn't really understand we would have to do that, but because of the drought and the new plantings that were in December, we had to go out and spend a lot of different hours trying to fill a small water tank to get those plantings watered. So that's about the gist of it.
And I see this is coming out of security services. Was this the account that we had for like the third party?
For security, the patrol, and we had some additional money left over there from them trying to have a hard time getting staff for those services last summer and the beginning of this summer as well.
Got it.
Yep. So we found a surplus of money there that I was able to cover it with.
So it wasn't necessarily a price reduction, but more a quantity reduction?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions on this? Okay.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Can I have a motion to transfer 5527 from security services to salary overtime? Taylor makes a motion. John seconds. All those in favor? Unanimous. Okay. Let's skip to number 4, which is to discuss and take action on request to transfer 32949 to the police overtime budget. Chief Anderson?
Good evening to the board. Don Anderson from the Police Department. And for all the times I've stood up here asking for a budget transfer, this is probably the easiest and most transparent budget transfer that I've been involved in. The board does know that we have been significantly shorthanded for officers during the fiscal year. So while, yes, we did overspend our overtime budget to the tune of approximately $32,949, and we're still working on some last-minute type of transfers, but as you know, we have a officer minimum that we have to meet, and when officers are not there, we have to backfill with overtime. The upside of this, although we were approximately 5% over on our overtime budget spending, we were about 5% under budget on our full-time salary on a much bigger number. So at the end of the day, we are ahead of the game, but wasn't designed that way, but that's the way it worked out. Most of this overtime was for backfilling due to shortages. So at the end of the day, I think we stayed well within our budget, and I don't believe in the time that I've been involved in the budget we've ever overspent our budget in any regard. So I don't foresee that happening again. We're back at full strength technically now. We do have some folks still in training, but I think as we move forward, we're going to have a few more retirements. But I think the days of being down 5, 6, 7 officers hopefully are over. So we should have a fairly smooth sail from here on out.
That's great. So I think, was it 4 positions you needed to fill?
Yeah, we needed, at one time, we had more than 4. Right now, we are technically at full strength with several people still in field training, 1 in the academy. We will have a retirement occurring on October 1st for a ranking officer, so that will cascade down to other officers as well. I do foresee additional retirements coming in the not-too-distant future. So we're going to have a continual hiring process. The Police Commission is going to be interviewing, I believe, 6 potential candidates, although technically, as of today, we have no openings. We know we will, so they want to have officer candidates ready in the queue list so we can get academy seats, and/or if we have certified officers coming in, we're ready to take them when we need them. So
That's
things are
great. And does that include like crossing guards and other sort of non-patrol?
Well, crossing guards that's a different bailiwick. The administrative lieutenant is doing yeoman's work to try to get our crossing guard positions filled for the start of school. It's sometimes difficult to do. And some of this overtime, quite frankly, in the last fiscal year was for officers who were staffing school crossing guard positions, especially in the afternoon, because we had to be there as the shift changes. So we would typically look for volunteers to take those posts in the afternoon from 2:30 to 3:30 or 3:45. I think we're probably going to be okay with school crossing guards, but that is an ongoing discussion with the Board of Ed of what that will look like ultimately as we move forward.
Okay. Any questions?
What about with civilian dispatch, since that's been a chronic issue?
We interviewed 4 civilian dispatch candidates over the last several weeks. 1 I withdrew today, I believe. We had another candidate, and that wasn't in that 4, but she withdrew earlier. She's an active dispatcher in another Fairfield County municipality, decided she was going to stay put. But we do have 3 viable candidates that are still in the mix that I think, pending a background investigation, we should be able to bring them on board in the not-too-distant future.
And will that bring us to full staff?
Except for the dispatcher that is still away on military leave.
Okay.
I believe she's due back in October, so it's hard to believe she's been gone almost a year already, but unless her orders get extended, which is always possible in the theater that she's in, so we'll see if she makes it back.
Okay. Any other questions? Yeah. Thank you, Chief. Can I have a motion to transfer $32,949 from the patrol kind of full-time salary to the patrol overtime salary? Dan moves. Rob seconds. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Okay, so 2 more transfers. I think, Kate, this falls under you. Discuss and take action on the $107,290.
That one's me.
Okay, Jen?
So we do this every year for our non-reps and our part-timers, where we don't know what their salary increase is going to be when we put the budget together, so we put it in the salary contingency account. And then the Board of Selectmen approves a wage increase plan for these employees, and we move it out of salary contingency and into the various departments. So that's what we're looking to do here, a total of $93,682 in the general fund, $3,256 in the sewer fund. And one little oddity is because we have filled the human resources position at about $10,000 less than was budgeted due to a retirement, we're moving funds out of full-time and human resources and back into the salary account because we don't need it in the department.
And Jen, just to be clear, these are all fiscal 2023 transfers, right?
These salaries are 23, yes.
Okay. And they're all non-unionized, right?
Correct.
Okay. How much will we have left in the general fund salary contingency after this?
I don't remember the exact amount, but these raises came in slightly lower than what we had budgeted for this group.
Okay. Okay, well, I appreciate the write-up. Anyone have any questions on these? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to transfer $107,290 from the 3 accounts listed, the general fund salary contingency, the sewer fund salary contingency, and the full-time human resources to the 3 funds listed here. Dan moves. Rob seconds. Got you by a second. All those in favor? It's unanimous. And I think the last item is number 5 on our agenda, discuss and take action on request to transfer $27,493 to the Selectmen's Professional Services account. Okay.
Hi. Kate Bush, Town Administrator. When we approved the financing, the appropriation for Great Island, we anticipated the Phase 2 environmental costs would be paid out of that. That was part of the 465 additional cost. Unfortunately, we had to start the Phase 2 work before that appropriation was finalized and approved by the RTM. So we can't pay the costs out of that appropriation. So we're asking for the funds to be transferred from some positive balances we had in other accounts in the administration. We had a part-time position that wasn't filled until midway through the year. Current first selectman doesn't travel as much as we had budgeted. We no longer have a clerk for our meetings, and then we did have a positive balance left in the HR from the retirement of the former director, and not replacing her until the beginning of the new fiscal year. So that's where those positive balances come from.
And again, these are all fiscal 23 transfers?
This is a fiscal 22 transfer.
That's when the expenses were incurred.
That's when the expenses were
Prior to
incurred,
June
yes.
27.
Yes.
And the accounts that we're taking them out of are fiscal 22 or fiscal 20?
They're all fiscal 22, yes.
Okay. And so Jen, these will just further reduce once we do our complete cleanup of fiscal 22 accounts?
Yes.
Okay.
And then we've appropriated funds that won't be necessary
Correct.
in '23.
Correct.
Or
It's in the Great Island appropriation that there'll be funds that were intended for this that won't be, well, obviously 27,000 and change, that won't be used for that purpose.
So in theory, we're bonding 27,000 less, if all else, if costs
All
don't
else.
change.
Everything else stays the same, I guess you could, yes.
Well, these were lumped together in closing
They were lumped
costs.
together into-
They weren't
yes.
isolated or, right.
No.
So they could be repurposed.
Yes,
those
they could, for
dollars, if
anything
necessary.
anything
If
that falls
necessary.
within that range of, what
Close.
that appropriation was for.
Right, thank you.
Got it. Okay, any other questions?
A quick question is moving these costs from one quote-unquote bucket to another, do you conceivably lose control of the costs that are all being accumulated to acquire the Great Island?
No, if we're doing our accounting right, they're going into an account that is for Great Island, and it is absolutely possible with our accounting system and Jen's staff to track all of those and be able to report on them all. There might be some in 2 different funds, but it's not a problem to account for. I'm not sure, this is in the general fund, but it's totally possible for us to account for them and report on them.
Okay, good, thank you.
So regardless of whether they're appropriated with bonding or capital proceeds or expense, we can still roll them up to get a true cost. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to transfer $27,493 to the Selectmen's Professional Services account to cover some of the fiscal 22 expenses related to Great Island. Is that the motion? Dan moves. Rob seconds. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Okay. Next group is going to be to discuss and take action on the special appropriation request of $563,232 related to last fiscal year's recreation program fees. Jen? Or Kate? Or Pat?
You can go through everybody if you want.
Chief, you want to take this?
Yes. Going once, going twice.
So, to summarize, in fiscal year '20, we had dissolved our standalone contra account that held all our programming revenue and expenses. And we established new programming accounts in fiscal '21, and we ended up bringing in so much more programming and more revenue that it also brought in more expenses. So at that time, we had to try to estimate for each group how much we thought we were going to need to transfer, which was very difficult to do because we just kept adding more programs and services were needed constantly in that fiscal year. So to avoid that this year, we wanted to wait to the end of the fiscal year to see where we ended up. And at this point, we are requesting, we depleted our expense account, which was budgeted at 517, and we are requesting to replenish that. I can't see my writing here. So we brought in 1.3 million revenue, but also depleted our expense account, which is budgeted at 517. So we're requesting a special appropriation of $563,232 to eliminate the fiscal year '22 deficit.
So if I understand this correctly, we are taking money out of the revenue account to cover it.
Actually, we're bumping up the budget on both sides.
Yeah. But will there still be more, there's still excess above this?
Yes,
Yes.
this
the
year, so we're
delta
not
is
moving
about
all of it in.
225.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is the surplus as expected,
It is. When we put together the fiscal '23 budget, we figured about 250, and we ended up fiscal '22 with 225.
okay.
Well, this is the last time we'll be making this transfer,
Yes.
Yeah.
so.
Right, and that's because a new special revenue fund was approved for the 2023 budget to record all program revenues and expenses.
Okay. Any other questions? Well, I entertain a motion to transfer $563,232 related to it. I should say for a special appropriation of $563,232 related to Parks and Rec program fees. Who would like to entertain that motion for the last time we make this motion? Rob, you win.
Posterity.
Rob moves, John seconds. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Next item on the agenda is an update on the status of financing as relates to the Great Island purchase. I guess I can kick it off in terms of, if you listen to the Board of Selectmen's meeting last week, they discussed the fact that they extended the diligence period underneath the purchase contract to give them time to work through additional diligence items. I think as Monica has discussed before, there's been the two primary areas of focus have been environmental, part of which we made a transfer today, and the other has just been around the area of investigating and diligencing the access and easements and so forth. And I think in speaking with Monica, I think they needed more time to be able to work through some of those issues and continue to diligence those, and that's what the extension was for. I know she mentioned that the intent is to kind of move forward as fast as possible, but diligence, like anything else, any other deal, takes time. From the financing perspective, one thing to report is as part of the extension, if you recall, there was a 30-day window between the end of the diligence period and the actual closing period. And as we talked about at our last meeting, when you look at the time that it takes to kind of warn the bond sale and the time that it takes to close the bond sale, that really left a week or so to be able to access the market. So that 30-day window has been extended to 45 days. So that'll give us a couple extra weeks just to be able to deal with any type of market hiccups or delays or anything, again, between the end of the diligence period and closing. I think overall, as it relates to rates, if you look at where we are today versus where rates generally were at the end of June when the RTM approved this, and in Jen, I think it was the second week of June, which was the last kind of set of rates that we looked at.
Yes.
In terms of approving it. I'd say rates are generally down sort of 30 basis points in the 20 to 30-year municipal range. So things have moved a little bit in our favor, and depending on what your view is in the market, this market seems to be cooperating, and rates have generally been on a sort of slow downward track, with I think the most believing the Fed will have some type of cut in Q1 or Q2 next year. So I think, so far the things are moving in our favor.
And we may not be issuing until then, right? No?
I think the plan would be once the first selectman completes the diligence period, and the diligence period is terminated, we then have 45 days to close. So once they finish up diligence, as soon as that happens, we'll go to market. So
And we have until February, which means we have until technically like mid-March if we had to, right?
The due diligence ends March 6th.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
March, so even longer then.
yeah, it doesn't have to go that far,
Right,
but
right,
yeah,
but it
it gives the
could.
town the flexibility to go through to March.
And then add the 45 days on it.
Yeah.
So our resolution, I just looked at it, said that we authorize the town to issue bonds or notes on or about August 17th, 2022.
Yep,
So we're gonna need a new resolution?
yes.
And would you expect that resolution to be more open-ended, or simply, once we are near the end of the diligence period, redo the resolution with a relatively firm date?
Yeah, once we're near the end, if things get resolved before the end of the extension, we'll bring it to you then. We may need a special meeting, but if it looks like we're gonna go to the end, we'll develop a calendar based on that and bring you a resolution that has those dates.
Yeah.
And how does that work with the RTM? Because technically the RTM approves all spending.
They've already approved the appropriation. This is just approving the structure and amount of the bonding.
Okay, okay. And will we be read in on the details of the cause of the extension?
Well, I think Monica talked about it a little bit, I think last Monday. It's primarily related to just ongoing diligence, and the two areas have been sort of environmental and access. But
Yeah, I was looking for a little more detail than that, because the extension period is pretty long, relatively. So it seems like there's something serious that's either been newly discovered or something that had previously existed that we didn't consider appropriately at the time of the purchase, so time of the contract signing. So I'd be interested to know. It raises concerns over some of the other issues about other possible things that may be warrant investigation. So I would appreciate getting briefed on the cause if we could.
okay, well, again, as Monica had pointed, although it's extended by 7 months, that doesn't mean you need to use the entire 7 months. But I don't think she, as they discussed it, I don't think there are any new issues that have popped up. I think it's just dealing with the ones that they had started investigating and just needed more time.
So said another way, would Monica say that the total cost of acquisition has not increased? It's just the amount of time necessary to accomplish the same scope of work that was originally envisioned?
Well,
Yes.
the cost of the acquisition can't change because the RTM has only approved X.
Unless it has to
For that.
change because you're gonna have to spend the money on the extra work.
The cost is not the issue of the extension. Cost to the town. I will ask Monica if you guys need a briefing for your next meeting or individually.
Yeah.
That would be good.
I mean, depending on just giving us part of a contract, which is, not yet closed yet. If
Right,
we
so
could-
it would have to be an executive session, but,
So we can talk to her about doing that possibly in our next meeting. I mean, I don't think, I know things are moving, but I don't think they're going to be wrapped up in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So we'll have her join our next meeting. And I do think it's good for us to meet again and pass a new bonding resolution just as time moves, just because, we generally set some bookends of kind of 50-50, 75-25 in terms of how we would do this. in terms of long-term versus short-term, and I think where, depending on where rates move, that could influence all of our collective decisions in terms of the mix. So I think it's a good idea for us to get together and talk about that. Okay, that's it. The next item on the agenda is approval of 4 different sets of minutes. And I think if I'm correct, Dan, are these the last 4 underneath?
3 of the old style, and then the final set from July 19th is our pared down new way that we're looking to do minutes.
Okay. Does anyone have any comments on either of the sets?
On page 3 of 5 of the June 15th minutes, in the second to last paragraph, there's a paragraph that begins, Mr. Walcott read his statement and several words, and it says, provided the rationale for his support of the comma.
You have something against comma?
There is, that whole section was a little bit.
It's a dangling comma.
We can,
I would say that nothing in that sentence, in that paragraph is in any sense substantive, so I would suggest that it be stricken.
Okay.
You were just checking to see whether I read these things, right?
well, I apologize that I haven't read them either until tonight, so that was my fault.
Well, I think you all see on the July 19th minutes,
It's a new version.
yeah, it's the newer version is much more factual. We came in, this was the item, it passed, who presented, this is what the votes were, and then move on to the next one. I think if you look at that shorter, more factual minutes, looking at it in connection with the video, I think it probably gives everyone a better
Absolutely.
overall view.
I don't mean to be insensitive about the folks that have been doing the hard work of preparing these minutes, but are we saving any money? Are we not having them work on that anymore?
If we switch to this, we wouldn't have them do our minutes anymore. We budget about $2,400 a year for that.
I think frankly, it saves us a lot of time, and I think the incorporation of small comments of, he said this without a comma or with a comma and things like that, I think frankly take up a lot of board time sort of looking at, and I don't think you ever can accurately summarize everything that was said the same way that a video can, so. So, any comments on any of the other minutes? May 17th, June 15th, June 21st, or the July 19th?
None.
Okay. Well, Jen, can I entertain a single motion to pass all 4?
Do them separately.
Okay. You have a motion to approve the May 17th minutes. David moves. Rob seconds. All those in favor? John, are you in favor?
Sure, of course.
Okay.
Sorry.
I think you can vote in favor of the minutes if you think they're accurate, even if you weren't, if you weren't here.
I watched
Next.
them.
What?
I watched them.
Yep. So the next one is the June 15th, 2022 minutes. May I entertain a motion to approve those?
As amended.
David?
As amended.
John?
As amended.
As amended. David moves. John seconds. All those in favor? Next is the June 21st, 2022 minutes. May I entertain a motion to approve those? Dan moves. John seconds. All those in favor? It's unanimous. And finally, the July 19th, 2022 meeting minutes. Entertain a motion to approve those. Rob moves. John seconds. All those in favor? Unanimous. Okay. Special assignments. Rob, starting on your end, anything on technology?
We met, 3 weeks ago, so the first time. Bottom line I have a more substantive update, like next time we meet. We're meeting again this Thursday, but we're basically breaking into almost subcommittees. So I'll have an accurate list of all that. I'll talk about that some more at the next meeting. And then on the audit, we met with the auditors last week, kind of recapped our last year's audit, and talked about logistics for starting up this year's. So I think they're coming in a month, Did I get that right?
End of this month,
End of
last
this
week of
month.
August and first week of September.
And we'll start
be
their
working
work,
on
and
that.
we're still aiming for, they're usually done by the end of the year, right?
Right, we're required to file by the end of the year or request an extension, and at this point, we don't foresee any problem with meeting the deadline.
And that's all I have, unless you guys wanted to chip anything on audit committee.
I think the only material discussion we've had are around the new issues that are percolating around the world, corporate world and municipal world, around the accounting for leases. Much more form than substance, I think, as it relates to our financials, but a lot of work and some additional tracking and accounting nonetheless.
And some work on the IT contracts too, if I remember, right? But they were-
That's next year, I think that gets
It's next year.
implemented.
Subscriptions.
Subscriptions.
This year's lease, next year's subscription.
And then the year after that will be something else.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You'll have your Spotify subscription on your balance sheet by the end of next year.
No comment.
Next, facilities, construction committee, anything on HHR?
The architect fee has been agreed to. The contract is somewhere between our attorneys and the architect firm. I'm not sure exactly where that is for signing. The design process is ongoing, and the long and short is that they expect to have some new schematics by the end of September. A couple of things have been happening in terms of environmental engineers being in, those types of things. The Curtis property, which is at Holmes, we're waiting on an updated survey results there because there are wetlands on that property, and we needed to have the updated survey to be able to ascertain. I think the only material plan there was to add some parking over there and potentially use that for construction staging area to keep as much construction away from the bus loop, which is on the left-hand side of Holmes, because that's a combined bus loop and parent drop-off loop, so it's very busy, so we want to keep everything away from that. And we're waiting, we've contracted with Ty and Bond to do the further traffic study for a potential cut-in onto the post road for Hindley, and we're waiting on their specific proposal at this time, but we're expecting that to be soon, and hopefully we'll be in touch with the folks in Hartford sooner rather than later, because that always takes a long time.
Is that because Route 1 is a state road? So do you
Route
need-
1 is a state road, so we're gonna need state approval for that, yeah. But the idea being is that the potential, the possible designs that I've seen, the idea is to create a parent drop-off loop on one side and extend the bus drop-off loop on the other side, so that we can get some of the buses off of Nearwater Lane and keep the parents and the buses separate. Basically coming out of Hindley will be one-way only, right turn only coming out kind of concept. So we'll create the flow so it basically funnels people.
I would assume, just because you're sitting here, if you guys talked with the police, do you guys have an opinion about that? And is that something you'd opine on? Like changing the,
That would have to come to the legal track and get ready for discussion.
It will come to them, but my assumption was that we would have to have the traffic study from Ty and Bond first before we would go to them. No one has mentioned taking it to them, but I know that that's the normal process, yeah.
On Ox Ridge, the requisite approvals for occupancy have been received, which is good, because the teachers are back and the kids are going back in a couple of weeks, less than a couple of weeks, 2 weeks from yesterday. So all good there. Rest of it is a little bit punch list. There's some odds and ends with respect to furniture. We're going to be kind of making do for a while, but all good. There was some challenges with respect to demolishing the existing building, because we have to remove contaminated soil, and there was some challenges with getting trucks to do that. So that might be delayed a little bit, but we're talking about a couple of weeks. Not anything that would impact the final completion date of what's the assembly wing, which is not due until May of '23.
What were they contaminated with?
I don't know. I think it's just soil removal and whatever, there could be any kind of construction parts or anything like that in there. I don't think it was anything hazardous or.
And then I recall, like, they were stockpiling a bunch of the old furniture, just in case the new furniture didn't come in. Did the new furniture come in as expected?
Yes, there were some challenges with desk heights. So I think they had to go back to the drawing board that certain of the chairs that were ordered, I'm not sure why, I know because they couldn't get the chairs on time that they ordered, so they moved in a different direction, and apparently the chairs are too high to slip under the desk. So there's some jerry-rigging of that to make sure that you can put a chair under the desk as you know, leave the classroom.
That's what I was thinking.
But those are very minor, like I said, punch list type things. But yes, the kids will have a chair and a desk and all those kinds of things. The teachers will have.
Will they just chisel out the floor underneath the desk?
Yeah, that'd be a good look for the new tile. Yeah, it's just.
You could also put the desks up on books.
We can do that too, right? Yeah, give it a good feel. Or they can go to a different chair, which I think is what they're doing.
Thinking a quick hacksaw, cut the legs off, good to go.
Okay. I think I can report, on board. I serve with the Board of Finance as representative for the teachers' union contract negotiation, which is just starting up now. So nothing really to report there, but that's usually a 2 to 3 month process in terms of start to finish.
Are there minutes available?
It's not, because all meetings related to union contract negotiations are exempt. And all held in executive session, so there are no.
Was there?
meeting minutes.
What's the status of the Greenwich discussion? That's in mediation, not arbitration, correct? Is that right? They're in mediation.
I think it's moved from mediation to
arbitration.
Arbitration.
And that's over the course of the next few weeks. That'll get arbitrated. Is that
Yes.
accurate?
Yeah.
Okay.
And how much time do we have?
The process from start to stop is usually around 2 months from when you start to where, if it wasn't settled, you'd have to go to arbitration.
And we'll know the Greenwich number before.
Yeah, depending on how long that takes to play out, yeah. But, in terms of, I don't really have anything else to report. Does anyone have new business they want to move or consider? Okay. I don't believe we have any old business.
Well, two things just to perhaps catch up. Could we possibly have an update as to the status of the dam and the work being done and proposed? And for that matter, who owns it? And might we also have a quick update on the status of all the various flood mitigation programs that are underway?
Yes, flood mitigation plans. I'll get, maybe I can ask Ed to prepare an update of, anything that was approved underneath the federal ARPA funds, any of the prior projects that we had looked at coming out of the flooding, and then also maybe a report on, we'll see if maybe Mark can roll in a report on if there's any update on the work we've been doing for any of the FEMA grants.
Right.
A policy regarding when the town would consider acquiring the property.
That too.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's, I think, kind of what you're referring to. Yeah.
Okay. I'll put together an email, Kate, just to.
Yeah, we're working on a bunch of, well, not me personally, but staff's working on a bunch of things about the flooding, so I think that will be all lined up, ready for you guys.
Great. And if they're preparing an update already for the Board of Selectmen, we
Yeah.
can, I think maybe tie it in.
And I
as-
think for the general public, actually.
Got it.
Can you comment on the news this week that we are not paving? And I know some people are reading into
Sure.
that,
Yeah.
things that shouldn't be read into that.
They absolutely are. One comment I saw online had to do with Casement Street and the work that was being done there. That street in particular would not have been paved as part of this year's work, because when a utility digs up the street, we make them patch it and monitor it and keep it fixed for a year while the road settles before we pave it. So that one wouldn't even be addressed till next year. What happened was, we built our budget to pave 6.4 miles of road. And when the bid prices came in, the escalation in some of the items, and things like milling and the actual, like the tar, not the whole asphalt, but the tar, the dramatic increase in those prices meant that we'd only be able to do about 4.9 miles of road. So we talked about it, whether or not we should go ahead with a pared down list, or wait and see if we could get better prices by bidding later. And we're already seeing the prices drop, so we believe that by rebidding in January, we'll be able to take advantage of lower prices. We'll be able to do some of the work in the spring, particularly around the schools. We'll do it during the spring break. And then we expect to be able to get closer to the 6.4 miles we had originally planned to do. And what Ed will do is, in his fiscal in the fiscal 23-24, we're going to try and build that number up to make sure that we get back on track. So, if we had planned originally to do only 5 miles, next year, we would pick up a little bit extra in the next year budget to get back on track. But it has
just to be
nothing
clear-
to do with Great Island. Absolutely
That's
nothing.
But to
what
be clear,
that's
we've
the
already-
clarification
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think was important.
And to be clear, these dollars were already appropriated.
They are already
So the dollars
appropriated.
have already been appropriated and budgeted by
Right.
the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, RTM. They're sitting there, we have them. They're just not being
They're not being,
used when,
right,
during
because
surge
we want
pricing.
to try and do as many miles as we can for,
Yeah.
for the residents. So we're trying to spend their money wisely.
I
Yeah.
appreciate the way you handled it, thank you.
Yeah.
And to be clear, this is repaving of full roads. This has nothing to do with the normal type of maintenance that's gotta be done on if
You mean
there's a
like
pothole
patching?
that pops up
Yeah,
or
it has something to
patching
do
or
with
anything
patching.
like
And
that.
we will
Yeah.
be patching, if there are roads that need patching, we're gonna, they're gonna be doing some of that this summer to, to keep roads in decent shape, until we can repave them.
Thank
It's
you.
okay from a budget perspective, are we gonna be under for 22, 23, and whatever?
No, because we're planning to do, we'll be doing some work around the schools. We'll do it when the schools are on spring break. And then we will, as soon as the weather, gets better, we'll go and do, and it's a capital thing, so it carries over year to year, but we will basically kind of merge the money from 22, 23 with 23, 24 and do a lot next summer.
Which is technically gonna be,
Technically the next fiscal year, but remember, it's a capital item. So it doesn't, the appropriation does not lapse at June 30th.
right, got it, thanks.
Anything else? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Dan moves. John seconds. All those in favor? We stand adjourned.